Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at pitching on tonight's Wednesday slate. 8 games, could be a niner, depending on the Twins A's. I think actually relatively we won't be using any of those guys either way.
Yeah,
We're really going to be looking at offense.
it's funny. Again, if we're talking about FanDuel or DK for hitters, we're probably patiently waiting on that game but for pitching, who cares,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're not really looking at really any of those arms there. So jumping right into the first game here, you get the Rangers and the Red Sox. Martin Perez versus Stephen Wright. 10.5 over under, Boston minus 180 favorites. And I think the big thing to talk about here is that Stephen Wright hasn't been particularly good of late. The strikeout rate's down a little bit, starting to allow a lot more base runners. So 9,400 on DK, 9,200 on FanDuel. It's just, for me, it's a stay away situation.
The old Jeff Francoeur, get around the majors once and then people start to get their eye on you. Okay, obviously that's not relevant to pitching at all, but he was batting like 400 for half a season once in his like second year. And so Stephen Wright here, he is still a deep tournament play. I think especially on FanDuel, he has a decent shot at a win. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean he has a ton of upside either. So I'm not necessarily afraid of this Rangers lineup against him, but at the same time, I'm not targeting him either. So that's that lukewarmness you're hearing coming from my voice is how I feel. So deep tournament play, but not really anything other than that.
Yeah, for me, I mean, you obviously look at that Texas start. I mean, 5 of those runs were unearned of the 8 he gave up. But you still, I mean, you just look at what's going on. I mean, before he was kind of known for keeping the ball in the yard, and all of a sudden he's kind of allowed a home run in 3 of the last 4 starts. His only start really that was solid over the last 4 has come against the White Sox, who are a bottom 5 offense at the moment.
Right.
So overall, I'm just cautiously not going to really be using him, even on an 8-game slate. I just think, for me, things are kind of pretty dwindled down to about 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah, I definitely agree there.
Royals and Blue Jays here. Ian Kennedy versus Marcus Stroman. Toronto minus 170 favorites. Over under of 9. And this is just kind of another stay away situation. I can't see myself using Kennedy on the road. He just really hasn't been that great away from Kauffman Stadium. Over 5 ERA. And Stroman really hasn't been that great either. I know he's pretty cheap, but Kansas City offense, how he's pitched this season, I'm not necessarily on him.
Yeah, and as I mentioned on FanDuel or DK there, that if Ian Kennedy was in a different matchup, I'd be looking a lot harder at him on this slate, at least compared to a lot of the pitchers on here. But yeah, as you mentioned, road split's not great, facing a really tough offense. Just not something you want to get involved with.
No, I don't think so either. Once again, I mean, 8-game slate, this one, is kind of an easy one to knock off.
Yeah, for sure.
Angels and Rays, next one here, Jared Weaver versus Drew Smiley, over under of 8.5. Jared Weaver's a guy who really just is not a strong arm. Obviously, this Rays offense is, not that good at times, but they do have big power numbers. And that's where I think you kind of get a boomer bust team here. And sure, Weaver could go out and throw a quality start and get 15 to 18 points. I could actually see that happening, but he also could be completely shelled. So for me, I mean, obviously you're just kind of hoping that bottom WOBA Rays team does show up and not the top 10 ISO team.
Right, exactly. So I think we're probably avoiding Weaver safely. And then again, the Angels, I'm okay with Smiley as sort of a tournament guy. I don't think you can look at him in cash even on this type of slate, but I do think he has some decent upside as a tournament guy.
I mean, decent strikeout rate. I mean, obviously, you look at his last few starts. I mean, he's been against tough opponents: Detroit, Baltimore, Cleveland, Minnesota, Royals, Marlins, Detroit. I mean, he's had a really tough stretch here, dating back to July. I mean, he can't really buy himself anything. You look at this Angels team. I mean, middle of the road against lefties. They don't strike out a ton, but obviously, I mean, Trout was out of the lineup. I didn't see if that was just for rest or anything, but if the situation where that occurs again, you can give Smiley kind of a look on this slate here.
For sure. I think that's what we're kind of looking at. Just a tournament guy, but keep an eye on it, especially if Trout's out again.
Yeah, definitely. Yankees and White Sox and Michael Pineda versus Miguel Gonzalez over under of 9.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, I think Pineda is a decent option here tonight. Obviously, a guy I'm not going to be trusting in cash games. But you look and he's kind of really turned it up here of late. I mean, big strikeout rate going back to the beginning of June. And you look at this White Sox offense. I mean, they just really aren't that solid of a team to go about right now. I mean, pretty low in WOBA against righties, decent strikeout rate too.
In terms of DK, as your SP2 in cash, is that not someone you're looking at?
No, I mean, I think it's a viable option. I
I
kind of
think obviously you're going Q8 there, but in terms of SP2, I mean it's a rough group to say the least.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there is obviously a lower floor. I mean, cash game wise, I mean, I like Jaime Garcia. I don't
Yeah,
mind that matchup for him, and a little bit cheaper allows you to get some bats in. So I think he's kind of worth a look. I mean, as I mentioned, it's kind of dwindled down to a few guys, and it really is Garcia, Pineda, Cueto that are kind of worth the mention.
right.
But the Pineda pricing on FanDuel is nice. I mean, 9,100. I don't mind that as a spin down GPP option.
But as you mentioned, he has gotten it going a little bit here, so I do think there's some upside. But yeah, Vegas and sort of what he was before this little stretch obviously cause for concern and a low floor.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, I mean, we talked about the Yankees being in a good spot. But they haven't particularly thrived in good spots this year. I mean, you look over the last 2 weeks, they're 26th in WOBA. Against right-handed pitching, they're 22nd. Both these teams are respectively, 22nd, 23rd against righties. And you see an over-under 9 here. Um, obviously there is some potential as far as what these guys' pitchers' floors are, and that's what scares you. But I don't think you're kind of looking at the Yankees as really a top threat. I think there are some reasonable options, but it wouldn't be surprising if we get a relatively lower scoring game here.
Definitely. Yeah, I could definitely see a lower scoring game in the cards here.
And and that's not saying go out and use Miguel Gonzalez.
No,
No,
no, absolutely not. I just think there are ways that they'll get hits and they'll get on base, but maybe they just don't drive them in or something like that.
Yeah, I think that could be a situation that happens here. So, moving on to the next game, and you got the Astros and the Mariners. Wade LeBlanc has been relatively solid through his 2 starts here and against pretty good offenses. I mean, Baltimore and St. Louis, those are decent bats, and he's been pretty efficient. 81, 87 pitches in those 2 games, and he went 6 innings, allowed, you know, just 8 base runners through those 2. So that's decent numbers. And against a Houston team that, I mean, yes, they're heavily right-handed, but also, I mean, there's a decent strikeout rate there. And you look at the Astros; they haven't particularly been great against lefties.
Yeah, young upside. And I think that's what you're looking at. You don't have to overpay. Again, on a slate like this, that's the type of night where you attack a guy like this in tournaments. So yeah, definitely down for that. Obviously, he's not quite a tournament guy or a cash guy yet, but definitely in tournaments. And again, against a pretty inconsistent Astros lineup, I bet you can get some pretty low ownership on him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think people are going to be kind of using a lot of Altuve, Gaddis, Springer,
Yeah.
Correa. So I mean, I don't necessarily mind attacking. Obviously, there is a lower floor here, but 24% strikeout rate against lefties for the Astros this season, 22nd in WOBA. LeBlanc isn't a huge swing strike guy, but has dialed up some strikeouts when he's needed to. A decent FIP. I mean, I don't mind him here. I think GVP option, he's reasonable for tonight.
Definitely.
Fires on the other side, not a guy I'm looking to take against this Mariners offense.
No.
Just kind of a tough situation, to stay away from. And Fires, can doctor up his good outings, but you look at who he's done it against; it's been relatively weaker opponents.
Yeah, I'm not rolling with him against this lineup. That's just a tough task for anyone for in terms of a quality start. Do I think maybe he can get through it unharmed and maybe 2 or 3 earned runs and a strikeout or two? Sure, but I don't see any type of upside here.
Yeah, I don't either, and I think that's what you're going to be looking for as far as kind of a low line guys. You want that upside, and I think he kind of
Right.
brings less of it.
Right.
Pirates and Cardinals, next one here. Jeff Locke, Jaime Garcia, over under of 8. St. Louis minus 157 favorites. Garcia, I think, is an intriguing option. You just look at this Pirates team, 24th in WOBA over the last 2 weeks, 23% strikeout rate. And you look at them, they've just been consistently slipping against lefties and just in WOBA in general. And that strikeout rate has been high against Southpaws, 24%. So Garcia, an intriguing option. I mean, 8,300, not a bad price tag for him. I don't even mind him as a GPP option at 8,300 on FanDuel. I think there is a decent upside. I think with that win favorite there, he's a decent option.
Yeah, I like that call. He wasn't really totally on my mind, so I think that's something that you're going to lead the charge with. But I definitely like that call now that you sort of mapped it out for me. So there we go. Yeah, obviously this Pirates team has been struggling quite a bit of late, and I mean he's been solid. So yeah, 8,300 on DK. That's a nice price as an SP2.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at Locke on the other side, struggles on the road, over a 7 ERA there. Facing a Cardinals team that isn't great against lefties, but obviously they do have some right-handed bats that can get to you if you're a mediocre lefty, and I think that'll be the case here. So Locke, even on an 8-game slate, not really worth a look for me.
Right.
Padres and Diamondbacks, Colin Rea versus Shelby Miller, over under 9.5. And in the past, I mean, maybe you take a look at this and be like, oh, Padres are relatively weak offense, but they haven't been. And you look at actually over the last 2 weeks, Diamondbacks and Padres are both 12th and 13th in WOBA. So, I mean, that just kind of shows how far the Padres have come of late. They've been pretty solid. So, for me, I think this is kind of actually the best offensive game to target tonight, really outside of Red Sox Rangers.
Oh, absolutely. I like both sides.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I like both sides of the plate here, in terms of Padres and Diamondbacks. I think we're looking at pretty much everyone on both sides, at least in the first 4 or 5. So I'm not really looking at either of these guys.
Yeah, I'm not either. It's definitely a stay away situation. Last game of the night, we got the Rockies and Giants. Jorge De La Rosa versus Johnny Cueto. Over under a 7. San Francisco -225 favorites at the moment. Cueto, I mean, has pitched solid against Colorado in both starts this season. 1 earned over 14 innings. Got the win in 1. 8 strikeouts. And, he's been quality at home and he's been quality this season. So, once again, at this price tag, he's been a consistent option. I think you just kind of ride it and use him as your top option tonight.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. As far as De La Rosa goes, I don't think I'm really looking at him either. So I just like this matchup for the Giants here.
Yeah, I do too. You just look at Colorado, bottom 5 in WOBA on the road. You look at Cueto, I mean, has been a solid arm this year, decent strikeout rate, 22%. Keeps the ball in the yard, so it kind of does everything you like out of a cash game arm.
Definitely.
Let's wrap things up here with the pitcher nail down. Be sure to check out DaveFantasyCafe.com for all our great tools and content.